We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Syrian government announces a new ceasefire after deadly clashes in the Druze city of Sweda. Israel holds situational assessment at Syrian border. US says fighting would stop soon. UN Security Council will meet today. Mark Zuckerberg faces $8 billion trial over user data misuse allegations. Plaintiffs claim Meta illegally harvested data of Facebook users in violation of a 2012 agreement with US Federal Trade Commission. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will meet British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in London today. Will sign a wide-ranging friendship treaty as part of a broader push to reset the EU-UK ties. And in cricket, Indian women's team wins first ODI against England in Southampton. All-rounder Deepti Sharma's unbeaten knock leads to 4-wicket victory. Well, on to the details now. Syria has announced that its army had begun to withdraw from violence-hit Sweda after a U.S. called for government forces to leave the majority Druze southern city. Syria's interim president, Ahmed al-Shara, has now said that protecting the Druze citizens and their rights is their priority. In his first televised statement after the powerful Israeli airstrikes on Damascus on Wednesday, Shara addressed Druze citizens, saying they reject any attempt to drag Druze into hands of an external party. He added that the Syrian people are not afraid of war and are ready to fight if their dignity is threatened. Earlier, the United States called on Syria's government forces to leave a flashpoint southern area to ease tensions with Israel.
We are calling on the Syrian government to, in fact, withdraw their military in order to enable all sides to de-escalate and find a path forward. And I think that that's obviously the goal because of the nature of what's happened and the Secretary's phrasing that this was a misunderstanding. He's optimistic that this can be achieved.
Well, it was the result of the Israeli airstrikes in Damascus on Wednesday that blew up part of the Syria's defense ministry and it hit near the presidential palace. The attacks marked a significant Israeli escalation against the Islamist-led administration of interim President Ahmed al-Shara. Following calls in Israel to help Druze in Syria, scores of Israeli Druze broke through the border fence on Wednesday, linking up with Druze on the Syrian side. Describing Syria's new rulers as barely disguised jihadists, Israel has said it won't let them move forces into southern Syria and vowed to shield the area's Druze community from attack, encouraged by calls from Israel's own Druze minority. And meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the Israeli military was working to save the Druze and urged Israeli Druze citizens not to cross the border. While Israeli Army Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir visited the Syrian border to hold a situational assessment with the army officials. Scores of people have been killed this week in violence in and around the predominantly Druze city of Sweda, pitting fighters from the Druze minority against government security forces and members of Bedouin tribes. And the United Nations Security Council will meet on Thursday to address the conflict. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned Israel's airstrikes on Syria on Wednesday and called for an immediate cessation of all violations of Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity. While Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, said Israel will continue to act resolutely against any terrorist threat on its borders. And on Syria's situation, Turkey has condemned Israel's strikes against other regional countries, including Lebanon, Iran and Syria. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said he was in close contact with Tom Barrack, U.S. Special Envoy for Syria and the U.S. Ambassador to Turkey. It also said that Ankara was also in close contact with regional powers in the U.S. It has halted all trade and recalled its ambassador in Tel Aviv for consultations too. Fidan added that he expects a ceasefire in the area in coming hours as a result of diplomatic efforts. Also, U.S. President Donald Trump will be having a meeting on Thursday regarding the U.S. citizen beaten to death by settlers in the West Bank. Trump administration has strongly condemned the killing of Saif Musalit, a Palestinian-American citizen who was beaten to death by Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank on Friday. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the ambassador to Israel has asked Tel Aviv to aggressively investigate the murder of the American citizen.
So first of all, have you seen yesterday Ambassador Huckabee has asked the Israelis to conduct an investigation? We want to get all the information about who was involved. We protect all American citizens anywhere in the world, especially if they're unjustly murdered or killed.
Well, an emergency conference organized by the Hague Group drew to a close in Bogota on Wednesday, with several of the participating countries proposing measures to end Israeli attacks on Gaza. Well, after the two-day event, representatives signed a joint statement condemning Israel's actions in Palestinian territories and pledged to implement legal and diplomatic measures to stop them. Also, the document establishes 6 concrete measures, including the denial of arms to Israel, a ban on ships transporting such arms, and a review of public contracts for possible links to companies that benefit from commerce with Israel. But only 12 out of over 30 member countries attended the Bogota summit, which aims to coordinate legal and diplomatic responses to Israel's alleged violations of international law. And the restored Mosul International Airport in Iraq has officially been reopened on Wednesday. Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani inaugurated Mosul's newly restored airport years after it was destroyed in the battle to dislodge the Islamic State group. With this reopening, Mosul International Airport becomes Iraq's 7th air hub, following Baghdad, Basra, Najaf, Kirkuk, Sulaymaniyah and Erbil. Mosul Airport was originally built in the 1920s by the British as a military airfield. During the 2003 U.S. attack, American forces used the facility as a military base. Also, the Islamic State group ISIS seized Mosul in 2014 and declared caliphate. In August 2022, then Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi laid the foundation stone for the airport's reconstruction. Mosul Airport is expected to become fully operational for domestic and international flights in 2 months. And German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will travel to London on Thursday in his first visit there since taking office in May. The visit is intended to deepen the close ties between the two countries. During the visit, the German Chancellor and the UK Prime Minister are expected to sign a friendship treaty covering foreign and security cooperation. The upcoming treaty will also include measures aimed at boosting economic growth and encouraging stronger people-to-people contacts between the two nations. Well, last October, the UK and Germany agreed a milestone defence pact, and they have since announced several joint initiatives, such as developing strike missiles. Merz's trip will follow the state visit to Britain by French President Emmanuel Macron, the first by an EU head of state since the UK left the bloc. Well, the European Commission on Wednesday proposed a $2.31 trillion EU budget for 2028 to 2034 with a new emphasis on economic competitiveness and defense and plans to overall traditional spending on farming and regional development. Most of the funding for the budget comes from the governments of the EU's member countries. The Commission also pitched dedicating €100 billion for Ukraine outside of the budget structure. The proposal marks the start of years of intense negotiations before a final budget is agreed by all member countries and signed off by the European Parliament. Those proposals reflect a desire to boost spending on new priorities after decades in which the vast bulk of the budget went on agriculture and regional development, known as cohesion policy, as it aims to reduce disparities between the regions. The proposal allocates €131 billion specifically to defence and space, a five-fold increase over the current level.
Enlargement is a key priority. It is not just a political objective, it is a strategic investment in Europe's stability and prosperity. And that is why we are opening the full toolbox of global Europe to candidate countries, not only technical assistance, but also support for reforms and investments backed by resources.
Well, though the farmers and regions would still receive substantial funding, according to the proposal, it sets aside €302 billion to support the farmers. Farmers held a protest in Brussels with influential European farmers lobby group Copa Cogeca calling the day European agriculture's Black Wednesday.
Europe is not Wonderland! Europe is not Wonderland!
Everybody is talking, Europe needs to get stronger. But how can you get stronger with an empty stomach? If Europe is worrying about the future, Europe should be worrying about the future of our farmers. And for a future for the farmers need a strong budget, a strong CAP. They don't need a budget which has to be shared with other policies in Europe. So that are we asking today. And that should not only worry our farmers, it should worry all European civilians.
Well, U.S. workers are building a new 11-kilometer taller secondary barrier to reinforce the steel mesh fence in the desert of southern New Mexico along the border with Mexico. Construction will witness new border wall of approximately 58 kilometers in Arizona and New Mexico. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection says these projects are expected to close critical gaps in the border wall and enhance the border security operations. While the constructing steel mesh fence has already led to reduction of migrants coming to the U.S., with Border Patrol arresting more than 39,000 migrants in the El Paso sector in the fiscal year to April, down 78% from the year earlier period. And earlier, Trump eased immigration crackdown, ordering around 2,000 National Guard troops to leave Los Angeles following a spate of protests last month. The order has drawn criticism from already angry California Governor Gavin Newsom, who has called the deployment a waste of money.
The President of the United States decided to advance his rote cruelty by utilizing the brave men and women of the National Guard as pawns in an effort to theatrically show his strength. He federalized the National Guard. He deployed roughly 5,000 military, not overseas. In fact, his entire first term, the President of the United States did not even send the military boots on the ground overseas. His entire first term. First 6 months of his administration, he decides to send them to the United States of America, 5,000 military, 4,000 federalized with the National Guard, close to 1,000 U.S. Marines. He sent them to a United States city. The utilization rate of our National Guard, less than 5%. You spent hundreds of millions of dollars, wasted hundreds of millions of dollars on this.
Well, even after the withdrawal of the 2,000 military personnel from Los Angeles, 2,000 National Guard troops would remain in the city along with some 700 Marines. And US President Donald Trump blasted his own supporters and Republicans as he went on to attack against anyone questioning his administration's handling of the case of dead sex criminal Jeffrey Epstein. Trump took his most combative note yet to try and shut down the issue after days of struggling to brush off a conspiracy theory that his base has long embraced, but which he now claims is a Democratic hoax.
He's dead, he's gone, and all it is the Republicans, certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook. And no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes. They're started by the Democrats, and some Republicans, in this case I was surprised, but they got duped.
Well, Trump is facing the most serious split in his loyal right-wing base since he returned to power over claims that his administration is covering up lurid details of disgraced financier Epstein's crimes to protect rich and powerful figures. Epstein died by suicide in a New York prison in 2019 during Trump's first term after being charged with sex trafficking in a scheme where he allegedly groomed young and underage women for sexual abuse by the rich and powerful. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Trump announces Coca-Cola to switch to real cane sugar in US. UK hails breakthrough as 8 babies born using pioneering IVF to prevent inherited mitochondrial diseases. An AI robot artist Aida unveils portrait of King Charles at Global AI Summit in Geneva. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has ordered the setting up of a new investigation team involving police and prosecutors to look into the deadly Halloween crowd crush that led to 159 deaths in 2022, his spokesperson said on Thursday. Lee's move to launch a new probe came as he met the bereaved families of victims from major disasters in recent years, including the Halloween crush in Seoul, his spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung told a briefing. And Britain has lifted restrictions on Pakistani airlines, ending a 5-year ban on the country's beleaguered national carrier. The British High Commission said on Wednesday the lifting of the ban followed safety improvements by Pakistani authorities. The decision comes just months after the European Union took similar steps. Pakistan International Airlines was barred from flying to Britain in June 2020, a month after one of its aircraft plunged into a Karachi street, killing nearly 100 people. The disaster was attributed to human error by the pilots and air traffic control and was followed by allegations that nearly a third of the licenses for its pilots were fake or dubious. PIA said it would resume services to Britain in the shortest possible time, with the first flights operating from Islamabad to Manchester. And beverage giant Coca-Cola has agreed to use real cane sugar in its U.S. production, President Donald Trump announced on social media. The company currently uses high fructose corn syrup in its domestic beverages, a sweetener that has long drawn criticism from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his Make America Healthy Again movement. The U.S. president did not explain what motivated his push for the change, which would not impact his well-known favorite beverage, Diet Coke. Since his return to the White House, Trump has reinstalled a special button in the Oval Office which summons a helping of the sugar-free carbonated drink. Coca-Cola did not immediately confirm the ingredient shift. And U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday claimed that China may soon begin handing out the death penalty for fentanyl manufacturing and distribution. Speaking at a White House event, Trump said he had imposed a 20% tariff on Chinese imports as a penalty for the country's role in supplying the drug. Trump made the comments as he signed the Halt Fentanyl Act into law, pledging to liberate America from what he called a deadly drug scourge. The event was attended by families who lost loved ones to fentanyl overdoses.
Today we strike a righteous blow to the drug dealers, narcotic traffickers, and criminal cartels that we've all been hearing so much about for so many years, and very little has been done. And we take a historic step toward justice for every family touched by the fentanyl scourge as we sign the Halt Fentanyl Act into law.
The bill will place all fentanyl-related substances, significantly copycat versions of the drug, on the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration's list of most dangerous drugs, classifying them as Schedule 1 under the Controlled Substances Act. The Trump administration argues the move will limit the incentive for cartels to create new synthetic fentanyl-like drugs to evade the reach of the Controlled Substances Act. And U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that his administration was cutting billions in federal funding for the construction of a high-speed rail line in California. The Republican had previously signaled his opposition to the project launched 15 years ago to build a high-speed train connecting Los Angeles and San Francisco. Launched in 2008, the project is connect the two main cities of the country's most populous state, has seen numerous delays and overshot budgets. Trump had earlier cancelled federal funding for the project in his first term, but the move was suspended after California challenged it in court. When Democrat Joe Biden was elected president in 2020, he restored the funds. The country's first fully high-speed rail line, planned to run about 220 miles between Los Angeles and Las Vegas, is expected to be completed by 2028 in time for the Olympic Games. A group of 20 finance ministers will meet in South Africa from Thursday amid trade tensions, a global economic slowdown, and Washington's threat to withdraw from multilateral organizations. Host South Africa, under its presidency motto Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability, has aimed to promote an African agenda with topics including the high cost of capital and funding for climate change action. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will not attend the two-day meeting of finance ministers and central bank governors in the coastal city of Durban, marking his second absence from a G20 event in South Africa this week. Bessent also skipped February's Cape Town gathering, while several officials from China, Japan and Canada were also absent, even though Washington is due to assume the G20 rotating presidency at the end of the year. Michael Kaplan, U.S. Acting Undersecretary for International Affairs, will represent Washington at the meetings. The G20 aims to coordinate policies, but its agreements are non-binding. And Brazil insisted that it will have enough rooms for the tens of thousands of people expected to attend the COP30 UN climate conference in the Amazonian city of Belém in November. At least 40 people are expected to attend the November 10th to 21st event in Belém, known as the Gateway to the Amazon rainforest, according to government estimates from the start of the year. AI, a perpetuity meeting in June, several countries raised concerns over eye-watering lodging prices in Belém, a northern city of 1.3 million inhabitants with limited hotel capacity. More than 50,000 people attended the last COP held in Azerbaijan in 2024, some 30,000 fewer than COP28 in Dubai. Well, Brazil is expanding accommodations in Amazonian city of Belém ahead of COP30 set for November 10th to 21st. Drone footage shows ongoing construction in the Belém as the city prepares for 45,000 attendees. Authorities have identified over 30,000 rooms, including 3,900 cruise ships cabins docked at the port. Brazil's COP30 booking site offers 1,500 rooms for developing nations at $100 to $220, with 1,000 more coming soon at up to $600. Civil society groups previously raised concerns about affordability and access. However, Brazilian authorities aims to ensure inclusive participation at the UN Climate Summit, spotlighting Amazon preservation and addressing global environmental challenges. And an historic moment for Suriname, Jennifer Sterling-Simons is sworn in as country's first woman president for the next 5 years amid an oil boom. Simons, a former Speaker of Parliament and a medical doctor by profession, received the presidential sash from outgoing President Chan Santhoki, who led the nation since 2020. Simons took the oath of office, joined by dignitaries, diplomats and special guests, including Venezuela's Vice President and a delegation from Ghana. The new Vice President, Gregory Rusland, head of the National Party Suriname, was sworn in before Simons. He succeeds Ronnie Brunswick, who stepped down to return to Parliament. Brunswick's party is also part of the new coalition government. He led the stage to applause, marking the end of his vice presidency. And work has begun to fix Fort Boyard, the well-known sea fortress near France's west coast, which is slowly falling apart because of strong ocean waves. The landmark became popular as a dramatic setting for a hit adventure TV show. Now Fort Boyard is set to undergo major repairs, will be made to protect the site until 2028. Officials hope the project will help preserve French heritage and attract more visitors. The fortress is a symbol of history, culture and coastal charm. Well, 8 healthy babies have been born in the UK using a new IVF technique that successfully reduced their risk of inheriting genetic diseases from their mothers. Children born through the 3% technique inherit most of their DNA, their genetic blueprint, from their parents, but also get a tiny amount, about 0.1%, from the second woman. This is a change that is passed down the generations. The findings were hailed as a breakthrough which raises hopes that women with mutations in their mitochondrial DNA could one day have children without passing debilitating or deadly diseases onto the children. 1 out of every 5,000 births is affected by mitochondrial diseases, which cannot be treated and include symptoms such as impaired vision, diabetes and muscle wasting. Mitochondria are passed down only from mother to the child. And humanoid artist Aida Robot has created a portrait of King Charles, showcasing her latest artistic work. The artwork, called Algorithm King, follows Aida's other royal portrait, Algorithm Queen, depicting Charles' mother, the late Queen Elizabeth, which was created to mark her Platinum Jubilee in 2022. It was created using Aida Robot's advanced AI algorithms, a robotic arm using oil on canvas and a camera in her eyes. According to a press release, Algorithm King was unveiled at the UK mission to the World Trade Organization and United Nations in Geneva during the 2025 AI for Good Summit. Well, a rare juvenile Ceratosaurus fossil has shattered records, selling for $30.5 million at Sotheby's in New York. The fossil, one of the only 4 known Ceratosaurus specimens globally, exceeded its estimated value of $4 to $6 million, making it the 3rd most expensive dinosaur ever auctioned. The buyer, who remains anonymous, plans to loan the fossil to an institution, citing its scientific and cultural significance. The sale highlights the growing market for dinosaur fossils, with Sotheby's Greek Week auction series featuring rare items from space, science and natural history. Cassandra Hatton, Soothby's vice chairman, noted the fossil's exceptional research value due to its virtually complete skull and rarity as a juvenile specimen. And still to come in DD India News Hour. Aiming to strengthen textile diplomacy, India's Textile Minister Giriraj Singh concludes his official visit to Japan. Stay with us for the highlights of the visit. DRDO develops Akash Prime air defense system to thwart multifarious air threats. Indian Army carries out successful trials at over 15,000 feet in Ladakh. We'll give you all the weather updates from around the country.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Syrian government announces a new ceasefire after deadly clashes in the Druze city of Sweda. Israel holds situational assessment at Syrian border. USA is fighting would stop soon. UN Security Council will meet today. Mark Zuckerberg faces $8 billion trial over user data misuse allegations. Plaintiffs claim Meta illegally harvested data of Facebook users in violation of a 2012 agreement with US Federal Trade Commission. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will meet British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in London today. Will sign a wide-ranging friendship treaty as part of a broader push to reset the EU-UK ties. And in cricket, Indian women's team wins first ODI against England in Southampton. All-rounder Deepti Sharma's unbeaten knock leads to 4-wicket victory. India's Textile Minister Giriraj Singh has wrapped up his official visit to Japan with a heartfelt interaction with the Indian community in Tokyo. The minister's outreach not only celebrated India's vibrant diaspora but also underscored the country's growing textile diplomacy. Ending his high-level engagements on a warm note, the minister met with members of the Indian community in Tokyo, calling them ambassadors of India. He urged them to remain rooted in Indian culture and values even as they continue to contribute to Japan's progress.
भारत और जापान एक दूसरे से बड़े नज़दीक हैं, सभ्यता और संस्कृति से भी। सारे लोगों ने भारत में इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए इच्छुक हैं और कई कंपनी वहाँ ऑफिस खोल चुके हैं और कई कंपनी और जाने वाले हैं। हमारे लिए खास करके टेक्सटाइल के सेक्टर में टेक्सटाइल मशीनरी के सेक्टर में भी लोग आए थे। उन लोगों ने भी इच्छा जाहिर की है। कई लोगों ने जॉइंट वेंचर की बात की है। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये 3 दिनों की यात्रा हमारी बड़ी सुखद यात्रा रही है और लोगों का विश्वास भारत पे बना है नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में।
Well, Ambassador of India to Japan, C.B. George, also addressed the gathering, saying that the example of India-Japan cooperation in automobile sector should be followed in the textiles.
There are many areas in which India-Japan business connect is very strong. Automobile sector. There is more Suzukis today in India than in Japan, if you count the number of vehicles. Okay, and very happy to know that now Suzuki is importing cars from India to Japan. So this is something which we want to replicate in the textile sector. And I am convinced that under his leadership, under the guidance of our Honorable Prime Minister, we would be able to achieve that target.
Well, India hosted the 4th BIMSTEC Disaster Management Exercise virtually. Event witnessed participation of disaster management professionals from BIMSTEC member states to assess and enhance regional preparedness for cyclones and floods and shared best practices to strengthen coordination for disaster response across the region. Well, India has always stood by its partners in the region as the first responder in times of crisis. The exercise further strengthened cooperation in the Bay of Bengal region towards disaster preparedness, response and resilience. And the Election Commission of India has said that over 69,900,000 enumeration forms have been collected in East Indian state of Bihar so far under the Special Intensive Revision Initiative, which is 88.65% of the total enumeration forms. The Indian poll body said only 6.85% of electors now remain to submit their filled enumeration forms, and many of them have sought time to submit their enumeration forms with documents in the coming days. The Election Commission said 1.59% electors have been found deceased, 2.2% permanently shifted, and 4.53% electors were not found at their address. Well, the Commission said it is ensuring that no eligible elector is left out and the remaining electors fill their enumeration forms before July 25th. And in a significant development, the Indian Army on Wednesday carried out successful trials of the indigenously developed Akash Prime air defense system at an altitude of over 15,000 feet in the Ladakh sector. The trial was carried out by the Army Air Defense along with senior officials of the Defense Research and Development Organization, which has developed the system. During the trials, the surface-to-air missiles registered 2 direct hits against a very fast-moving target aircraft in a very high-altitude area in a rarefied atmosphere. The Akash Prime system would form the 3rd and 4th regiments of the Akash Air Defense System in the Indian Army. In comparison to the existing Akash systems, Akash Prime is equipped with an indigenous active radio frequency seeker for improved accuracy. Other improvements also ensure more reliable performance under low-temperature environments at higher altitudes. A modified ground system of the existing Akash weapon system has also been released. And President Draupadi Murmu will confer the prestigious Swachh Sarvekshan 2024-25 awards at a national ceremony in New Delhi today. Swachh Sarvekshan 2024-25 marks the 9th edition of the world's largest urban cleanliness survey. This landmark event will unveil the cleanest cities of urban India, recognizing the timeless efforts of cities driving the Swachh Bharat mission urban forward. The introduction of SSL serves a dual purpose. It inspires top-performing cities to reach even higher standards of cleanliness, while also motivating other cities to improve their performance and compete for the top rankings. Awards spotlight the theme of reduce, reuse, and recycle. And in a significant move to strengthen security arrangements for the ongoing Amarnath Yatra, the Kulgam police of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir have implemented advanced surveillance technologies along the Srinagar-Jammu National Highway. The Kulgam police have adopted high-tech technology, deploying state-of-the-art geo-friendly surveillance and facial recognition systems on the Srinagar-Jammu National Highway to further strengthen security for the Amarnath Yatra. Geofencing has been implemented across the highway stretch, falling within Kulgam's jurisdiction to track the movement of both pilgrims and vehicles in real time. Facial recognition systems have also been deployed to identify potential threats and enhance overall security during the Yatra. Well, the Amarnath Yatra has been suspended on Thursday from both Pahalgam and Baltal base camps due to continuous heavy rains over the last 2 days. This comes a day after the woman pilgrim died and 3 sustained injuries in a landslide along the Baltal route of the Yatra in Ganderbal district. This is the first time the Yatra has been suspended from Jammu this year. Authorities have advised pilgrims to stay at their respective base camps until the weather improves and the track is deemed safe for travel. And some weather updates now. First up, from India, as monsoon extends its influence, pouring heavy rain over states such as Uttarakhand, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. Met Department has sounded a 7-day warning for rain, thunderstorms and lightning over various areas. While intense showers are being witnessed in some regions, others, such as parts of Delhi, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, are witnessing irregular and comparatively lighter rains. IMD predicted heavy rainfall over Odisha, sub-Himalayan West Bengal, Sikkim till July 21st. Moderate rainfall predicted at most places, accompanied with thunderstorm and lightning likely over the region within the next 7 days. Heavy rainfall likely over Konkan and Goa, Ghat areas of Maharashtra on 20th and 21st of July. Also moderate rainfall at some places very likely over the region during next 5 days. Heavy rainfall predicted over Assam, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Tripura during 19th to 21st of July. Also, Himachal Pradesh has been significantly impacted by the ongoing monsoon season of 2025, with cumulative losses reaching an estimated over 81,000 lakh rupees as of July 15th, officials said on Wednesday. The total death toll during the monsoon season from June 20th to July 15th crossed over 100 across various districts. Rain-related incidents, including landslides, flash floods, cloud burst, drowning, lightning, electrocution and falls from trees, steep rocks, have accounted for several deaths. Well, an early summer heat wave has accelerated the melting of snow and glaciers in the French Alps, triggering water shortages at mountain shelters just as the hiking season begins. At the Celle Refuge, caretaker Noemi Dargan says everything is drying up to get weather. She's using a pipe to reach a nearby glacier, but the rocky terrain and stronger storms make it risky. Scientists warn the Alps are warming almost twice as fast as other places, and many glaciers may disappear by 2100. Without snow cover, glaciers melt quicker. In Chamonix, France, often dubbed the mountain capital of the world, the shrinking Bossons Glacier reveals how rapidly things are changing in these fragile mountains. Well, torrential rain battered South Korea on Thursday, leading to the death of one person and the evacuation of over 100 others, according to the country's safety ministry. The ministry said that some parts of the South Changcheong region in the south of the capital, Seoul, had received more than 400 millimeters of rain since Wednesday. Landslide alerts were raised to the highest level for several regions, including Chungcheong, as the heavy rains continued. According to the Korea Forest Service, the Yonhap news agency said 2 people trapped in a landslide in South Chungcheong had been rescued. Well, the air quality alerts are in place across Canada due to smoke from wildfires, with officials warning residents to limit time outdoors. Eyewitness footage showed smoke and flames burning in forested and mountainous areas in Newfoundland and Labrador and eastern Canadian province on the Atlantic coast. Canadian officials said at least 7 fires are burning across Newfoundland and Labrador, with an unknown number of cabins destroyed and residents forced to flee. And flames are licking burnt orange cliff edges, plumes of smoke blotting out the sun. These are the scenes currently meeting visitors at one of America's most treasured natural wonders, the Grand Canyon, where 2 wildfires are burned out of control since July 10th. The Dragon Bravo and White Snake fires continue to burn close to the Grand Canyon's north rim, forcing the evacuation of the area and causing the destruction of more than 80 buildings, including the historic Grand Canyon Lodge. Ignited by lightning, the wildfires continue to burn in northeastern Arizona's Coconino County, leaving more than 60,000 acres of land charred so far. And intense firefighting efforts are going across northwestern Turkey as wildfires that erupted in Terigad's Sarkoy district spread rapidly into the Gelibolu region of Kanakkale province. Firefighting teams, both in the air and on the ground, were working to contain the fire, adding that winds in the sea were reaching up to 30 kilometers per hour, fanning the flames. Authorities have ordered the precautionary evacuation of multiple villages and neighborhoods as the fires, fueled in strong winds, threatened residential areas and forests. The wildfire had earlier prompted the evacuation of 3 villages in the area and caused 4 people to be sent to hospital. Hundreds of wildfires have broken out across Turkey this summer, forcing tens of thousands of people to temporarily evacuate their homes across the country. And still to come in DT India News. Trump says he won't fire Fed Chair Powell for now, but renews criticism over interest rates. Preparations begin for the historic 20th edition of the Delhi Half Marathon to be held on the 12th of October. Dolce & Gabbana bring glamour to Rome with dazzling shows amid iconic landmarks.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DT India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and on to some business news now. South Korea's top court upheld a not guilty verdict for the chairman of Samsung Electronics, J.Y. Lee, backing 2 lower courts ruling clearing him of accounting fraud and stock manipulation related to an $8 billion merger in 2015. The Supreme Court's verdict permanently removes a long-running legal distraction for Lee as Samsung plays catch-up in the global race to develop cutting-edge AI chips. The Supreme Court upheld an appeals court ruling dismissing all the charges in the case involving the merger a decade ago between 2 Samsung affiliates, Samsung C&T and Shell Industries, which prosecutors said was designed to cement Lee's control of the tech giant. And a $8 billion class action investors lawsuit against Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg and company leaders, current and former, begins on Wednesday. Jeffrey Zients, White House Chief of Staff under President Joe Biden and a Meta platform director for 2 years, starting in May 2018, testified that the Federal Trade Commission initially sought tens of billions of dollars, but was willing to accept $5 billion, and the company felt it was important to reach a deal that did not name Zuckerberg as a defendant. The trial began on Wednesday and is scheduled to last until July 25th. The case was brought following revelations that data from millions of Facebook users was accessed by Cambridge Analytica, a now defunct political consulting firm that worked for Donald Trump's successful U.S. presidential campaign in 2016. And Bahrain's Crown Prince announced his plans to invest more than $17 billion in the United States at a meeting with President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. Under the plan, Bahrain was expected to sign a deal valued at about $7 billion for its national carrier, Gulf Air, to buy 12 Boeing BAN aircraft with an option for 6 more and 40 General Electric engines. The announcement from Prince Salman came during an Oval Office visit on the heels of foreign investment deals Trump made during a trip to the Middle East in May. Sunni-related, Bahrain is an important security partner of the United States, hosting the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet. Bahrain's exports face a 10% baseline tariff under Trump's trade policies, but have been spared larger levies imposed on other countries' exports. Well, the U.S. official said the new Bahrain deal would support 30,000 American jobs and was secured with help from Trump and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Later this year, the King of Bahrain will visit Washington to finalize these agreements and solidify the progress made in building the 2 nations' economic prosperity. And Brazil on Wednesday urged the U.S. to respond to a trade proposal submitted in May, reaffirming its openness to a mutually acceptable deal after U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 50% tariff on Brazilian goods starting in August. Brazilian Vice President Geraldo Alckmin stated on Wednesday that negotiations between Brazil and the U.S. are urgent. Alckmin said that the Brazilian government is still waiting for a response from the U.S. authorities and would have no problem with extending the deadline for negotiations. Meanwhile, in a joint statement, Brazil's Foreign Affairs Ministry and the Ministry of Development said the government had sent a letter on Tuesday reinforcing its May 16th negotiating proposal. In the letter, Brazil also expressed anger at the planned increase in tariffs from 10% to 50% on its exports to the U.S., warning of a very negative impact on both economies. And U.S. President Donald Trump said that he's not planning to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, but he kept the door open to the possibility and renewed his criticism of the central bank chief for not lowering interest rates. Also, Trump, who has been criticizing Powell on an almost daily basis, confirmed he had floated the idea with Republican lawmakers, marking the latest chapter in an escalating campaign by Trump against the independent central bank and its embattled chief.
Terrible. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him. But they did. So, no, we're not planning on doing anything. We're very concerned. He's doing a little renovation for $2.5 billion of the Fed, building a renovation, and they have a close to $900 million cost overrun.
Well, Powell, who was nominated by Trump during his first term in the late 2017 to lead the Fed and then nominated for a second term by Democratic President Joe Biden 4 years later, had reportedly said he intends to serve out his term, which runs through May 15, 2026. A recent Supreme Court opinion has solidified a long-standing interpretation of the law that the Fed chair cannot be fired over policy differences, but only for cause. Trump blames the Fed for higher long-term rates that increase the cost of U.S. government borrowing. His attacks on Powell have continued since his signing on July 4th of the Big Beautiful Bill, the tax and spending bill that independent analysts say will add trillions of dollars to the U.S. deficit. And you're watching DD India News. Our time now for some sports news. The Indian women cricket team beat England by 4 wickets in the first one-day international in Southampton on Wednesday. Deepti Sharma's unbeaten half-century, anchored by Jemima Rodrigues and Amarnath Yatra, helped India chase down 259 with 10 balls to spare. With this, the Indian women team registered their second-highest concessional successful chase in ODIs. It was only the third-highest chase on English soil by any team. The Indian team has taken a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series. Both teams will clash again in the second ODI on Saturday. And West Indies all-rounder and World Cup winner Andre Russell has announced his retirement from international cricket. The Jamaican is a 2-time world champion, having been a part of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup winning squads in 2012 and 2016. Russell will play his last 2 international matches against Australia on July 20th and 22nd of July at his home ground in Sabina Park. The swashbuckling all-rounder has taken 61 wickets and scored 1,078 runs in 84 outings for West Indies. Russell has made his mark in domestic T20 leagues as well. His power-hitting ability and piece-bowing skills made him one of the most prolific all-rounders. And the Delhi Half Marathon on Wednesday launched a registration for its historic 20th edition scheduled to be held on the 12th of October. The milestone year is expected to draw thousands of runners, elite athletes and fitness enthusiasts from across the country and beyond. The registrations for the physical and virtual races will commence on July 17th and will remain open until September 19th. The landmark edition of the World Athletics Global Gold Label race will be flagged off from Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. Since its inception in 2005, the Delhi Half Marathon has grown into a World Athletics Gold Label event. AI, the launch event, former Indian goalkeeper PR Srijesh spoke on Britain breaking barriers and on his new role as Indian coaching. An Italian luxury brand, Dolce & Gabbana, showcased high fashion in Rome this week, hosting 2 runway shows against the backdrop of the iconic city's historical landmarks. Models were dazzling frocks adorned with prints, embroidery and other embellishments. Dolce & Gabbana held its Alta Sartoria menswear show at Castel Sant'Angelo, with models wearing designs inspired by ecclesiastical dress walking down a catwalk set on the Ponte Sant'Angelo bridge. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News App, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News App.